Hello Ian, and I'm going to help you with the 9-mark question within this lesson, which is the bulk of this lesson. So hopefully you've watched the Supersize Earth that's got all of the information about the resources, and in that you might remember the megastructure. There was the Chinese water transfer system, so this lesson's all about that. Obviously, there are little tasks on here and they feed into the big one, which is what I'm going to talk about. But it's worth just pointing out here that these red lines are the routes where they're going to move water. So it's where they're going to dig those big man-made canals and they're going to ship water from it. And the question that you're answering is whether or not you think it was the right choice. So it's a 9-marker, both sides of the argument. So the most useful slide in terms of structure is this one. So depending on how your writing style will work, or depending on how challenging you might find this, there are two options for structure. Now, obviously, you need an introduction regardless of which option you pick, and you need a conclusion. And we can give you an example of introductions in a minute. Now, structure option 1 is probably the easiest one if you really struggle. And you can actually use a similar format to what I've got on this template here. Okay, so one reason why it's good, so this is to do with the difference in the water supply and why it's important we need more water in the north. And then another positive reason, the population is growing and there's going to be a greater demand for water. And then the second half of it, reasons why it's not the best solution, so to do with the people being displaced. And then an alternative measure that could maybe be more cost effective, more environmentally friendly, and then your conclusion at the end. So that's quite a simple way of doing it. And you can get 9 marks doing it that way, but sometimes it's better and can flow better doing it with this option here. So instead of having all the positives and all the negatives, mixing it up a little bit. So you might have a positive and then a negative that directly relates to it. Then another positive and then another negative that directly relates to the previous positive. And that way is generally, it's harder to do in some cases, but it can produce a higher quality answer. So that's kind of what we're after. Now, Mr. Rod has wrote an example for it here. So you're going to use this to obviously pick out the advantages and the disadvantages, and then without looking at this, you're going to write your own version of it. Now, obviously, there's no point just copying it because we know what this example is. So this has got a lot of the information in it. So what you need to do is go through, pick out the advantages, write them in one side of the table, pick out the disadvantages. So mainly, in terms of advantages, remember these are big industrial towns. Industry uses a lot of water, and you can get some figures from the answer about that. So we need to make sure these places have the water that they need to continue that economic growth and the industry. Not only that, there's a lot of agriculture in the north as well. So water is needed for agriculture and it's needed to feed that growing population. Yeah. Other reasons as well is they have much more rainfall in the south compared to the north. And I think they have some figures for it in here. So that's one of the main reasons in the north experiences droughts. Now the negatives, there's a big one here. So the Danjanku Reservoir, 330,000 people were moved from this area. Now that is an agricultural area that is no longer in use because there's a reservoir. So to boost agriculture up here, they actually got rid of agriculture down here. And they moved those people to an area with poor agricultural productivity. So what that means is an area where they couldn't grow very much. So those people lost their livelihoods, those people lost their homes, and China did actually lose some agriculture. So that's a big negative. Obviously the cost is a big negative. I can't remember the price, but it is in here somewhere. There we go, 62 billion. So the price of it is very expensive, and you could say just using water more sustainably would maybe solve that problem. One of the more complicated problems is the industrial output here. So the water that is needed for the industry is getting polluted, and that in turn is polluting all of the water potentially within these canals. So that ruins all the water there. So because it's not being very well managed, it's actually ruining the water that's being shipped there. So by using water more efficiently, you're going to avoid that problem. Okay. So basically, organise your advantages and disadvantages. As a minimum, you want 2 on each side, I would say, for this. And you can take them from here. And then have a go at writing them, using your specifics, using your links. Remember, keep asking yourself, so what? And then your conclusion, do you think it's effective? Do you not? And the main reason why you think what you think. And it's fine if that main reason is already mentioned. So hopefully that will help. There is a very simple writing grid for it here. I'm not going to put that on because I don't want people to use it unless they are desperate, but you can email me and I can give you this to help if need be. Okay, so good luck with that one. I hope this helps. See you later.